And now for our Sunday specials. Acts of terrorism create waves of unimaginable grief, but the pains that dastardly act brings can't be imagined except for those who experienced it. In this report, TVC News' Moyo Thomas tells us the story of a victim who was at the UN house on the day of a bomb blast hit the building, causing deaths and destruction. 13 years after, the family is still trying to find a way to cope with the trauma.
August 26, 2011, Nigeria was in the headline news all over the world. The unimaginable had happened. Despite cases of suicide bomb attacks in some parts of the country before this day, no one imagined that the United Nations office could be a target. So also was it for those working in the building until the fateful Friday morning. 10:20 a.m., a loud blast rang through the building, shaking it to its foundation and pulling down a significant part. A thick plume of smoke billowed into the air. Reality checks showed that a suicide bomber had detonated an improvised explosive device that has caused an unthinkable magnitude of destruction. Emergency recovery and rescue operations commenced. Bodies were pulled out from under the ruins. There were 23 fatalities and 60 injured. Oluwasegun Ibitoye is one of the victims. He lives to tell his story, something he hopes to put behind him, but cannot.
As soon as I touched the door of the ATM room, the next thing I just heard is boom, explosion. And that explosion, I just noticed that I was traveling on the air. I mean, I kept on saying I will live but not die. I landed outside by the clinic there. That's where I landed. And was there. By the time I land, I just started hearing people shouting, and I started shouting that I'm alive. So it was one of our colleagues that was running out from the compound that said that this is... So I was the first person that was taken to National Hospital. So by this time, I already had... My hand is broken, my leg... This leg was already scattered on the ground, and I was just there. I couldn't lift myself. So they had to pack the leg and the carton and the hand to National Hospital.
He was at the National Hospital in Abuja for 2 days, in and out of surgery room, before being airlifted to South Africa for further treatment.
So I was in South Africa from August until December. I came back in December 2011. I came back in December because my wife was pregnant. She was in South Africa with me. She came back in November because we're expecting our child in January.
His heavily pregnant wife at that time was by his side all through this life-threatening period. As the family thought they had scaled the hardest part of the blast and were on the way to recovery, it didn't take long for them to know they were in for another shock.
The second week of January, she gave birth to our daughter. And when she gave birth to our daughter, and she slumped 2 weeks later as well because of the acute of the trauma she went through. Because she was in the theater with me in Abuja, she was also with me in South Africa. So I guess the stress and everything. And during that period, we were in the hospital. She gave birth. 1 week later, they said the doctors were on strike. So she was asked to go back home. So I was doing that proper care. And that's how she slumped. And she had that brain hemorrhage. She was in coma for 10 days as well. All this, I was still having a PUP on my leg. I was supposed to go back to South Africa at the end of January. I couldn't go because she was not speaking to anybody except me, because after 10 days she woke up, she didn't recognize she had a child. She didn't even know that anything. The only person she recognized and speak to is me.
These silent spells indicate how harrowing this experience was for Mrs. Ibitoye.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. Then I lost my job, so everything was like, everything just came together.
She recounts the story as she remembers.
We went to South Africa with him, all the wives to South Africa. We saw so many people in South Africa. And even one man, he died in South Africa, 2 of them.
What was going through your mind of this?
I don't know. I was strong. Because I remember I was advising, there was another woman that the husband was there. They brought out all his intestines and all that. They took him to the plane and went to South Africa. And I was the one even consoling the woman that don't worry, your husband will wake up. Your husband will wake up, don't worry. Don't worry. He'll wake up.
Do you know where this strength came from?
I don't know. I think it's God. I don't know.
Apparently, putting up such level of strength has its downside. We went in search of a clinical psychologist to help us understand how trauma manifests.
Is seen in those dimensions. It's not seen in how they dress a lot of the time. People who have scars, psychological wounds, you rarely see them, manifest in how they dress until you touch that issue that is very sensitive to them. And you will see how they would, from 100 go down to 0 within split seconds. That tells you that there is something, there is an unhealed or unresolved emotion that you just touched. And that is very significant. Sometimes people break down. The slightest, agitation, the slightest frustration, you see people breaking down, you see people, all sort of manifestation that shows that there is really unresolved emotion. And that is a significant indicator to say this person really needs to be in therapy.
It's been 13 years already, but only those who wear the shoes know where it pains.
I just came back from South Africa in May for another surgery on my eye because most time water settled at the back of my eye, so it gave me so much pressure that my eye go blurry even with the glasses. So I go time to time to evacuate the water at the back. Sometimes I had injections and the rest of them. And I said to somebody that I don't pray that any of my enemy go through that. I go through a lot. Like I said to people, 13 years it happened, I hardly sleep. Just this morning I was telling a colleague about a severe backache that I've been having. I have pains sometimes in my bones. When I say pain, this pain is so horrible that when you are telling somebody you are having pain, he will not understand, right? Because when you say you are having pain, he will just be looking at it, but you are good. Why are you talking about pain? And at the point I stopped taking painkillers because I realized that at the point I was being asked that too much of it could damage your liver, your kidney and your liver and all that. So what I do now is that I have pains, but I can't really take anything. So I bought creams that I can just rub on that place to just relieve me, and that's what I do. So it's not an experience you wish for your worst enemy.
Until this day, his scars are a constant reminder of the trauma his family went through.
My 2 corneas were affected. In fact, the nerves, look, the only eye that is seen as I'm sitting down is only this one. But when I'm looking at people now, they think the 2 eyes are working. This eye, the nerves, the blood, the nerves all were damaged. Now, because the nerves were damaged, water always settled at the back. And I always had the pressure always go up. So they have to put a device to reduce the pressure. For this one, the iris is damaged. This one too, the iris is artificial iris that I have in both eyes. So even now as I'm talking, this white light is penetrating through my eyes. And last year I was there with the doctor that he said, because usually when the light comes in, if your iris is working, ought to close, not to allow the light to penetrate. But because the iris is artificial and it just stands, so light still go through. But then it's better than what it was before, because before I cannot sit here without wearing a dark shade. If I light now as I'm talking to you, I can't go into the sun. I have a dark shade that I had to wear.
His aged mother, who was there through all the ordeal, is thankful that the worst did not happen.
kìnìún mo ń dúpẹ́ torí ọmọ mi tọ́lọ́run ò bá mi pa kò sẹ́ni tí bọ́ǹbù bá ti tó yé tí ì bá ṣe oore ọ̀fẹ́ ọlọ́run rí bí mo ṣe rí ló ṣe dá ẹ̀mí ẹ̀ sí mo bá yí ilẹ̀ mo yí ilẹ̀ mo yí ilẹ̀ jọ́ tí bá rápá yẹn báyìí tó sì ṣe yẹn mà anytime tí bá ti rántí máa dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ọlọ́run ò ṣe ò kò jẹun lóko ọmọ ọlọ́run ò ṣe ò kò jẹun sunkún ọmọ.
No matter how much the Bitoyes want to forget the 26th of August 2011, the scars Mr. Oluwasegun Bitoye carries on his body will forever be a constant reminder. The impact of terrorism runs deep. The experience of the Bitoyes shows that it is not only those directly impacted that feels its effects. The main worry or issue related to this traumatic experience is a growing number of cases involving explosives. In 2019 alone, according to the United States Bomb Data Center, 14,940 explosive-related incidents were recorded. The center also says explosion itself rose from 630 cases in 2015 to 715 as of 2019, with fatalities also doubling within the same period. Our world in data puts the global deaths from terrorism at about 20,000. The Global Terrorism Database says it was worse in 2014 as recorded deaths was about 45,000. Considering the weight of burden from trauma, there is an increased global effort in fighting terrorism and protecting humanity. The deep, unimaginable pain that trauma causes, it is important at this time that government strengthens institutions in order to be able to provide psychosocial support for not just victims of bomb blast, but kidnapping and other stressors we have in the country.